In this video, we'll be going over how you can create and place info boxes into stories on your website. Info boxes are separate content boxes that are designed to be placed within your stories, and they're comprised of different sections called segments that your visitors to your site can view or toggle between to view the content within the info box. When you are creating these info boxes, there are three different options to format them and to format how the segments or parts of the info box will look. And those three options that we'll see again later are the stack, which is going to stack those segments in the info box on top of each other. The slider, which is going to allow viewers to toggle between the different segments. And the accordion format, which is going to give you an expandable and collapsible version of the segments in your info box. If you are interested in creating an info box and placing it in a story, the first thing that I would want to do is go to my site's dashboard here, and I'm going to find the tab labeled info box on the left navigation bar. When I hover over that info box tab, I can either go view all my info boxes or add a new info box. Once you click on that add info box button, there are two steps that you will need to make sure you take before you can start adding the segments or parts to your info box. And that is that I need to give it a title and save it as a draft. So once I've given my info box a title there and I've saved it as a draft, I now have the option to start building it and adding the segments to it. The first thing I want to do in building and setting up the segments of my info box is decide which of those formats I want it to use. And again, those three options are the stack, which will stack the segments on top of each other, the slider, which will give visitors the option to toggle between, or the accordion, which is that expandable and collapsible option for the segments. There is also in this info box format box here, the option to collapse or expand all segments, which we'll look at in a little bit. And then there's an option to add an info box byline. So I click on add info box byline there. I'm prompted to credit a writer or a contributor for this info box. And this is going to work just like any other byline on your site, in that it will link out to that person's staff profile. That info box will get pulled into and displayed in their staff profile if their byline is added here. And just like the byline field in a story, there is the option to add additional writers to an info box byline. Once I've chosen my format and added a byline, if I choose to, I can then go ahead and start building my info box segments. So to do that, I'm going to click on this Add Segment button in the center. And for each segment of the info box, I have the option to add in a heading or a title for the segment, whatever text I want to include, and then a media type as well. And for media, you can either upload a photo, a video, or an audio embed, or you can not upload any media. So I'm going to go ahead and complete this first segment of my info box here. So again, giving it a heading, some text, and then I'm going to go ahead and add an image for this segment. I would repeat that same process for any additional segments that I want in my info box. So again, clicking on this add segment, giving that segment a title, some text, and adding the media that I would like included in the segment. And you can have up to 50 of these segments in an individual info box. Once I have my segments inputted here, if I want to rearrange them, I can do that by clicking and dragging these arrows in the top right-hand corner. And this might be a time when, if you have a lot of segments, you may find it easier to collapse those segments prior to rearranging them. So if I want to do that, I can come back to this Infobox format area and collapse all segments, at which point I just see the headings. And it makes it easier to click and drag and rearrange. And I can expand those segments back out later if I choose to. Lastly, if I need to delete a segment, I can click on this little red X in the corner here, and that will delete the segment from the info box. Before I publish this info box, I do here on the right also have some options for designing the info box as well. If I would like to do things like changing the width of the info box or the background color or the photo caption and credit. So just some different design things that you can select here on the right. Once I'm happy with my info box segments and my design, I can either save it as a draft, preview what it will look like, or I can go ahead and publish it on my site, which is what I'm going to do here. Once an info box is published, it can then be added to a story using the Add Snow Story element button. But note that that info box must be published here first, not saved as a draft. It does have to be published in order to place it in a story. So if I want to place my published info box into a story, I'm going to first navigate to the story where I would like to place it. And I'm going to first create a blank space in that story where I'd like that info box to go. From there, I'm going to use the Add Snow Story element button up at the top here. And you'll see a variety of different options for Snow Story elements that you can add. And in this case, I want to select the info box element here on the left. There I can choose which of these info boxes I want to place in my story. And once I've selected the correct info box, I'm going to insert. When you insert an info box into a story, it is going to appear as short code here. So to see what it will look like if I publish the story or update the story, or if I preview the story, I can see my info box added there to the text. Lastly, if after adding an info box to the text, you want to make any changes to it, such as changing the format or adding additional segments, you will need to go back to the info box tab here in your dashboard, locate the info box that you would like to edit, do any editing that you need to here, and then update the info box here. If you do update an info box via this info boxes tab, that info box will update in any of the stories where it appears on your website. So that is how you can create, publish, and include info boxes in stories on your site. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Snow Support.